So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my taskbar and open PSPP. I'm going to close the user tip and I'm going to go to import data. So I'm going to click on File and Import Data. And it's going to pull up all the files on my computer that could be imported as data. So I'm going to select the one entitled GSS 2018 sample.csv. And it's going to take me through a wizard to import this. So I want to make sure that all cases are selected because I want to import the entire data file. Click Next. Now it's going to prompt me to select the first line that contains data. So we'll notice that line 1 only contains variable names, and line 2 is the first line to contain data. Then we want to make sure that we select the box that says line above selected line contains variable names, and click Next. For what characters separate fields, you want to select comma. And for what character quotes fields, you want to select double quote. And then you can click Next. Then we want to check that the data formats displayed below are correct and fix any that are incorrect. So we look at variable view and we see just what we should. We see that we have across each row, we have a variable. And down each column, we have a characteristic of that variable. So all the variables in this sample are numeric and are measured at the scale level, which is what PSPP calls interval ratio. And then we look at the data preview, and we see that down the columns we have data listed. So each row represents a respondent or a case, and each cell down the columns represents a score. So we want to click Apply. And here we see our variable view. Just like in the preview, we see that across each row we have a variable. This is ab any. As we're going to see later, it stands for whether we agree that a woman should be allowed to have an abortion for any reason that she wants one. And then in each cell, we see a description or a characteristic of that variable. Now, if we look at the data view, we see that each column represents a variable, and across the row, we see cases. So this cell that my pointer is in now, that I've highlighted, is respondent 1's answer to the variable ab any. We want to do some frequencies now. We want to select some different variables. The book tells you to select 3 different variables and do frequency distributions on them. So I'm going to select abortion for any reason. I'm going to select can trust. And I'm going to select child's. So those are the 3 variables I'm going to analyze. But I might want to know what each of them represents. So in order to do that, we need to go to a separate place. We need to open the codebook. So I've posted on Canvas the GSS codebook. It's a PDF. And the codebook is just a guidebook that tells us what each variable represents and gives us a distribution of that variable. So the easiest way to find your variable is to go to the search bar and search for that variable name. So I'm going to search for ab any. And it shows me that it exists in several places. So I'm going to hit enter until I see the variable name ab any. So I was already there, so we're just going to say it got me there. And how I know I'm in the right place, let's make it bigger so we can see. How I know I'm in the right place is that the variable name is ab any. And it tells me that this is whether you have to scroll up to see the STEM question. Please tell me whether or not you think it should be possible for a pregnant woman to obtain a legal abortion if. Then we go back down to ab any. And we see that the woman wants it for any reason is the leaf question. So if we go to the year 2018, the most recent year for which we have data, we see that 764 gave a response of 1, and 760 gave a response of 2. And we see that 1 equals yes and 2 equals no. So 4 people more thought that the answer to this should be yes than thought it should be no in 2018. So we see a frequency distribution already in the code book, and now we know what our variable means. So our next variable was can trust. So let's go back to the search bar and type in can trust. And just hit enter while it loads slowly. Here in the view of the different places it occurs, we see var can trust. So we want to go to var can trust. And the question is, generally speaking, would you say that people can be trusted or that you can't be too careful in dealing with people? And we see that 1 means that people can almost always be trusted. And 4 is you almost always can't be too careful in dealing with people. We also see that an 8 represents can't choose, and a 0 represents not, a 9 represents no answer, and a 0 represents not applicable. So if we go to the distribution for 2018, we see that 64 people said that people can almost always be trusted, and 549 said you usually can't be too careful in dealing with people. And only 136 said you almost always can't be too careful in dealing with people. So we can ascertain from this that people in general are fairly suspicious of others. So the next variable I wanted to look at is childs. So I'll type childs into the code book. And I'll go to var childs. And I'll see that the question is, how many children have you ever had? And I go to 2018 and I can see a frequency distribution. And notice that it's cut off, it's truncated at 8 or more. So if you've had 14 children, you'll still answer 8. And 9 represents no answer or don't know. So now that I know what my variables stand for, I can do frequency distributions on them. So we're back in PSPP, we're in data view, and what we want to do now is we want to go up to this analyze tab. So click on analyze, and we want to select descriptive statistics, and from that we want to select frequencies. So here we have a little box that says variables, and we want to select ab any, and use the little arrow button to move it into the variables field. Then we want to select can trust. We can move it into the variables field. And let's select childs and move it into the variable field. Now this is something important I want you to pay attention to. You have a couple of options here. You could click OK, which would run frequencies on the variables you've selected. But what I want you to do is actually click paste. Because what paste does is it pastes the syntax, the computer code for that command into a syntax editor. And what this means is you now have a receipt or a written record of the analyses you did, so you can reproduce them anytime. So what I want you to do is select the text, click run, and click run selection. And it's going to give you output, but you have to pay attention because your output is actually going to be in a different window. So if you minimize this window, here you see your output. It says PSPP IRE output viewer. So if you scroll down, you can actually see the frequency distributions for ABINI, CANTRUST, and CHILDS. So this is how you do the SPSS operations for this assignment. And I want you to do one last thing. I want you to pull your syntax editor back up. And I want you to save it. I want you to do File, Save As, Syntax, and save it wherever you are saving your data. Go ahead and save that and send it to yourself if you're working on a computer other than your own computer. Okay, that's all I want you to do, and then just follow the rest of the assignment in the textbook. But that's how you do the operations in PSPP. All right, have a great day.